All right, what is going on out there, Justice Watchers? This is Justice is a Process, and you're coming to you with a video today. This is one I've been working on or been flirting with doing for a while, and I thought, you know what, let's put this together because I've been working on this case because this was the case that got me into justice watching. This is the case or deciding to go live on YouTube and start sharing my thoughts about the justice system and watch the justice system. And it's the Charlie Adelson case. And it's a case that's going to continue to stay in the news. It's one that we're going to be watching here when it goes to trial. But I have consumed, uh, and had been consuming, a lot of uh, information and evidence on this case. I haven't actually dug into the case file because as I learned with the Tyrone Tucker case, you can get almost virtually the entire case file there. I've got to do that. Um, but because there's a story to be told, I'm sure, within it. But I'm going to tell you a story here. I did get into some things. I did get into the slides here that I've got come from the trial coverage of Charlie Adelson. I've watched the Magbanua trials. I've watched the Rivera, or not the Rivera trials, the uh, Sigfredo trial. I've watched all of these things. And, you know, with the idea of trying to figure this thing out, I've also read the book. I can't remember the name of the book off the top of my head, but it's like 300 some pages. It's really where I started out with this case. Um, after I had watched the Charlie Adelson case and got really interested in it, I read the book, and it's a really a lot of information, a lot of good information. But one thing that always stuck with me here was it just seemed something about this case. It just seemed like we're missing something here. We're missing something here. Something doesn't quite make sense. Why these rich, successful people would have done things the way they did it? Why would why would a hit be done in the way it was done? Why would they be showing up and picking up money? One of the big things that's really crazy in this case is why would the money be paid after all of this was done? Normally, you don't see that. Normally, you see some money paid before, the money's secured and paid, and then they get paid as soon as it gets done. Not any of the delays and the weird stuff that happened here. And it stuck out to me. It stuck in my craw as I'm reading this and or watching this. And there was one guy in this case who's probably, surprisingly enough, the most honest guy in the entire case because he's literally just told the truth because he doesn't know anything. He's not making anything up. He's got kind of a weird sense of honor code where like he's going to tell the truth, but he's not going to lie on somebody, and that's what I see in Luis Rivera. But Luis Rivera, he is and Charlie Adelson's attorney, Rashbaum, just called him one of the most important witnesses in the case, and he is. So I've stolen some clips from him, and it's what made me really start looking into this. And I think when you look at the phone records and you look at the phone activity, it tells a story. And then based on all of the evidence, so I'm not going to show you all the evidence in this case. It's too voluminous. I'm going to assume that you're somebody, if you're watching this video and clicked on this video, that you're somebody who has a strong understanding of the evidence in this case, probably better than I do because I've only been looking into it now for a couple of months. But I'm going to share with you my theory on the case. It doesn't exonerate anybody, and it still would fit if the state would have prosecuted under this theory. I believe all of them still would go down in one way or the other. Although it is what was a defense that was potentially expected by Georgia when she was interviewed by STS, Surviving the Survivor. She had indicated that a variant of this defense could be what was coming because I think it's actually what happened and occurred. So I think it's also why these people can sit here and say we're innocent. It's why they can sit here and be so shocked that they're getting prosecuted. It's also why Charlie Adelson looks shocked, yet not shocked. And it's some of the things that are alluded to in the phone calls that have come out. It supports exactly what I believe I'm going to present to you. Um, and please, in the comments, in this live, if you're here, I'm going to unveil this on a premiere. Please give me your feedback. Let me know what you think because I want to hear. That's why I put these things out. And then of course we can talk about it on my nightly show that I'm going to start doing here. And it'll be good fodder for speak, even if you disagree with me. But I'd love to hear what you think. And sometimes, even when I'm rolling around a theory, there's aspects you guys will put out. And I know the same thing happened with the Tucker case. My comment section is just absolutely fantastic place to go to really get the thoughts going. But let's kick this off with the testimony that got my attention. So here it is, right here.
So Sigfredo came to you and said that you had to go back to Tallahassee, right?
Yeah.
He told you that he needed you to go back because he needed the money, right?
Yes, sir.
Previously have said you assumed there was, quote, more to it, but you never asked Sigfredo, right?
Never asked.
All right, so those are the clips that made me believe or got my mind started. And essentially, what stood out to me is hopefully stood out to you is the fact that Luis Rivera was saying that he always felt there was something wrong. He always found there was something odd. He always felt there was more to this. And that that Sigfredo had told him, quote, "I need the money. We're going to go finish this." Now, I'm going to give you a synopsis, and we're going to go through the phone calls. And I'm going to walk you through it as we look at the phone activity that started in this. But here's what I believe. I believe, and again, it's impossible to know exactly how all this went down. But I believe that at some point, whether it was in October of 2013 when they met, at some point it's brought up to Catherine Magbanua by Charlie Adelson, or at least it's discussed. And she says, "Hey, I've got somebody who might be able to take care of this." So my opinion is that this originates with Charlie trying to put this in motion. And as things continue to disintegrate, as Dan Markel continues to be an asshole, I believe that throughout the springtime, this plan comes to fruition. And ultimately, Charlie says, "Okay, let's do this." And there's money given, there's directions given. The information is given to Sigfredo or to Catherine Magbanua, and then all the way through to Sigfredo. That leads them to that gives them all the information they need to complete this hit. Now, I believe if you see all the activity, I think the whole family's in on it, and I think it was set up. Wendy was in Miami. The kids were in Miami when the original June trip happens, which the police did not know about at the beginning of this investigation. It's my opinion that at that point there was a hit, there was money being exchanged, there was a readiness to go forward, and I believe Wendy found out about it, and Wendy said, "Do not do this." And I think that ultimately it was put on hold. I think that Catherine Magbanua was contacted, and I think that it was ultimately, said, "Hey, look, the kids are in town." I think some sort of excuse was given, which is what Luis Rivera confirms, that they thought that they were there. They're not going to do it when the kids are around. They're not doing it in front of somebody. And ultimately, they were told to go home. But I think it was kind of a situation where it was like Sigfredo was like, "Listen, you're not getting out of this." It was put on hold. Sigfredo wanted his money. And then Sigfredo, and ultimately, when this ultimately happens, I think that Katie and Sigfredo are ultimately disintegrating. I think Sigfredo tells Katie, "I'm going to go do this, and you better get your man." And ultimately, why Sigfredo comes after Charlie Adelson. The most mysterious thing was, why is Sigfredo coming after Charlie Adelson in the middle of the street? The reason being is because he wanted to get paid. And I believe that Sigfredo, when they get back, I believe that what happens is Charlie Adelson, being the asshole that he is, says, "I ain't paying you. I gave you $5,000. You went up there. You got your money. That's all you're getting." It's my belief that when they get back, that becomes a point of contention. And the reason why Charlie Adelson Sigfredo is going after Charlie Adelson in the middle of the road, trying to run him off the road and losing his mind, it has nothing to do with being jealous over his woman. It has to do with the fact that listen, bro, you better pay me my money. And I think ultimately Sigfredo says, listen, if he ain't going to pay me, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to go do the crime. And then you let that guy know once I kill him and I show that we got to him, you let him know the same thing will happen to him or I want my money. And I believe ultimately that's what's going on. That's why Catherine Magbanua is calling him frantically, asking to meet up. That's why they're asking for dinner. That's why she's saying, oh my God. That's why there's calls from her to Sigfredo, and she's trying to call Luis, and she's trying to figure out where he's at and what's going on because she's hoping that he's not going to go do this. I think he ultimately goes and does this. That's why he gets all jacked up and drunk and coked up, and he tells Luis Rivera, we're going up to do this. I need my money. I'm going to get paid. Hence why when they get it done, Luis Rivera is like, all right, great. Where's the money at? Where do I pick the money up? And he says, well, Katie's got to still go get it. And he's like, what the hell's going on here? That's why ultimately there is an extortion that ends up coming into play. Because once this happens, Katie shows up at his house, that is Charlie Adelson, and she does what Charlie said. She says, listen, he killed Dan. He's the one that's responsible, because the missing link here that makes the case seem so ludicrous is the fact that why would Charlie Adelson believe that these guys were responsible without any proof? Well, the proof is in the fact they were planning it together. And this guy went and did it. And she now comes to him and says, Charlie, I warned you. I told you. And he did it. And if you don't do it, he's told me you have 48 hours or you come up with the money, with the rest of the money, and you're going to pay X amount of dollars, whatever it was they had agreed upon. And he says, I only have X amount of money to which why Donna ends up paying him $3,000 a month. And they start doing all these things because they're worried that Sigfredo is going to come after him. They are getting extorted. And I do believe that that's why he's installing a camera system. One of the reasons why he was doing that beforehand, before this murder ever happens, because he knew Sigfredo was after him because of the confrontation in the street. He didn't believe Sigfredo was actually going to go kill Dan Markel. But I think that it ultimately ends up happening, and this nightmare happens. And that's why when he starts to get threatened, he says, oh my God, is this somebody within the gang that's now got wind of this situation? Why would they be doing this? Don't they know that we're taking, this is a nightmare, and that's why they get so afraid. Now, whether or not the dad knew about what was going on, probably may or may not at the beginning, but I think he probably did. And I think it may have been Wendy and the dad who said, Harvey, he said, call this thing off. This is crazy. Do not do this. We're not doing this. And Charlie called it all or tried to get out of it. But I believe that this originated from an attempt to hire a hitman to get this done. They call it off. Charlie pays the guy $5,000 or whatever it was they paid up front. This guy wants the rest of the money. Charlie refuses to pay him and says, I ain't paying you $100,000 or whatever, kind of blows him off. And as a result, Sigfredo says, no, that ain't how it's going to work, brother. We had an agreement. You don't get to just back out. It's either pay me my full money or I'm going to finish this off. And then when they can't come to an agreement, he ends up attacking him in the street. And ultimately, basically, Charlie says, holy shit, this thing has just gotten way out of control. And then, of course, ultimately, it ends up leading to Charlie getting convicted, and Donna now's on the hook because of what they were having to do in this situation. Because, like I said, they're not technically not guilty. They began this. They're guilty of a conspiracy because conspiracy to commit murder doesn't require the murder to necessarily happen. They conspired. They gave money. There's plenty of evidence that they did this, that they would be going to prison one way or another if they fully admit it to this being the case. But I think this is why Rashbaum comes and says, all right, we've got a creative way to deal with this. Here's what you're going to say. And here it is. And there's the Latin Kings here. And look, now whether it's Charlie that came up with this to Rashbaum or it just kind of worked its way out, we'll never know. There's attorney-client privilege that attaches to this whole thing. But if you look at the phone activity supports. Again, I don't know exactly what happened. the phone activity, that the evidence in this case absolutely supports that this is what happened here, and that and Luis Rivera, fortunately, has no idea. He was kept in the dark. Sigfredo's in the middle, and Katie's there. And I think, like I said, that's the point where you hear right now. You've got all these different stories around, and the truth is right in the middle, as Captain Phelps liked to say. There's two sides, and the truth is somewhere sandwiched in the middle, and that's exactly what's happened here. There's two sides to this, but somewhere in that middle area is where the truth is. And the truth is, I believe that explains the behavior, that explains why these people have been able to walk away and think, oh my God, we're innocent. We didn't want this done at this point. So in their eyes, we're not guilty of killing Dan because we called it off. But the bottom line is they did conspire to kill Dan. They did send these guys down, which technically is a crime in and of itself. And ultimately, maybe you could make a case that their actions and the result of their actions led to the death. I'm not familiar with all the laws or ways that a prosecutor could come up to charge something like that if they had a confession or had somebody come forward and say this is exactly what happened. But that's exactly what I think happened in this case. We're going to walk through the phone calls and take a look at it. So let's jump in to these calls here. All right, guys. So we're going to start out here with the first thing we're going to start out with is June 2nd, right? Again, obviously there was testimony by Catherine McBanawa about conversations that were had, about a envelope that was passed. I think all of those things were honest things that happened. Charlie's kind of bragging that he's going to be setting this up at the famous Yardbird dinner. Makes the stupid jokes about I was going to hire a hitman instead I bought you a TV. All the things are showing it's on his mind that this is where he's going. So I think that at this moment right here, this Comfort Rent-A-Car shows that the rent-a-car that was originally rented by Sigfredo Garcia, and we see that. And then we're going to see the phone activity on June 2nd. And what I want you to pay attention to is the difference of who was talking to who on the dates. So June 2nd, you see the different areas of where the phones were at for Magbanawa's cell site locations, showing that she was driving Sigfredo Garcia to go get the phone. Now, here you can see this is kind of a high-end view of the different phone call activity. Here you see it starts at 8:25. You see Magbanawa's involved, Adelson, Magbanawa, Harvey's on there is getting called by Wendy. You can see there's a lot of phone activity going on between all the parties here. You've got Magbanawa and Sigfredo talking. You've got Charlie and Harvey talking. They're talking back and forth. You've got a lot of activity between Catherine and Sigfredo getting this thing rolling, because this is the time when they're getting ready to head down, and we're going to go through each one of these calls as it comes out here. So first call is Charlie Adelson calls Catherine McBanawa at 8:57. Okay. Next call that happens is Catherine McBanawa calls Charlie Adelson back at 9:17, and they have a 25-minute phone call. So they're talking. They're talking about what's going on. They're talking about what's happening. Clearly, there's things that are in motion. Then Wendy texts Harvey Adelson something. So my opinion is this is when maybe Wendy's getting wind of what's going on. She's texting Harvey. Harvey's involved, and they're all talking about what's happening here. To which Charlie then calls the Adelson residence, and they have a 25-minute phone conversation, which we've heard testimony was a little bit out of the norm. We then see Catherine McBanawa then calls and texts Sigfredo Garcia. We don't know the contents of these texts because they did not have access to them. But we know that there were calls that were made and texts between Catherine and McBanawa and Sigfredo's secured the rental car at this point. Let's see here. Oops. And we've got Sigfredo. Charlie Adelson calls Harvey at 10:27 for a 3-minute call. So again, there's a lot of activity going on between Harvey and his dad, because I believe Harvey at some point is figuring out what's going on. There's talk about things that are going on. I mean, Harvey could have been involved in this. I mean, the thought that he wouldn't have known, but there's talks going on. I think Wendy has called her dad. I think Harvey's getting involved and saying, are we sure we want to do this? Are we sure this is gonna be the right thing to do? Catherine calls Charlie Adelson, and they have a 23-minute conversation. We don't know we don't know what all of this is, but it's just looking at all the activity as we go through here. Um, and how you're seeing this group of people, and then you want to look and see what doesn't happen when the crime actually happens. Harvey calls Charlie at five for it speaks for 5 minutes and 18 seconds. You can tell there's a lot going on here, as if there's talk, something's going on, something's being debated. Um, Catherine texts Sigfredo. So what I'm thinking is that Charlie set this in motion. Money's been given. Wendy's found out. Charlie's trying to get a hold of Catherine, and they're trying to figure out a way out. I think it's this night that it gets canceled before they even head down there. But Sigfredo's saying, like, Catherine's like, hey, and of course, Katie also wants to get paid as well, I think, in this, because you got to remember, she was going to be getting some financial stuff from this. But I think it's like, hey, we got to figure out a way to do this. And Sigfredo's like, hey, I'm going to, are we ready? Is the time, ready to go? Now we know Sigfredo gets pulled over. We know that they go back and return that rental car because of the fact that he gets pulled over. But I also think potentially maybe it was the vacillating back and forth. Like, hey, again, they're coming up with excuses. And Catherine, I'm sure Katie is probably saying, listen, Charlie, this is not the type of person that you back out on this. We told him he's going to get a certain amount of money. And Charlie's pretty much probably saying, listen, hold on. We'll figure this out. Let me talk to my family. Let me talk to Wendy, and make sure and get everybody on board because we don't want to lose end. Um, so let's see here. We got Sigfredo calls, then texts Catherine Magbanua. Again, it's a lot of back and forth to me that's indicating that there's some debate going on here. That there's, again, you would already think that if this was happening, they'd already know the location, they'd already know what's going on. But what appears to me to be happening here is there's a lot of debate at this particular moment about what is happening and whether or not they're going to go. And then we see a phone call at Magbanua calls back Garcia for 27 seconds, and then for 4 minutes and 33 seconds. And that's at 11:05 p.m. At 11:27, Sigfredo calls Catherine, and there's 2 20-second calls. So there's things going back and forth. We then see the ticket that Sigfredo gets, to which it prompts him to have to return that rental car. And ultimately, I think too that part of the plan that links in here is when they were originally doing this, I think there was a plan to set up Jeffrey Lacoste. I think that was part of what they were trying to do, was to throw suspicion at Jeffrey Lacoste by renting a vehicle that was similar to what he drove. So I think all of these things are elements of truth, but it was all what the plan was in June. Unfortunately, I think they got cold feet. I think Wendy found out about it. I think that I don't know how much Wendy actually knew or did know at that time. I think and a lot of people hate Wendy in this, but I think she's the one that said, don't do this. You're crazy. Call this off. This is not going to work. No way. I think Charlie, being the egomaniac that he is, just thought it would, to him, it was like a flex. It was like, I can get this done. I can get this taken care of. I'm willing to do it. I have the money. He was an arrogant guy who just didn't think anything would catch up to him. And of course, he obviously didn't think he would ever be in a prison cell. And you can see the whole family's interacting here. The whole family's talking. The whole family's, you know, uh, uh, going back and forth. And the night before they leave, they're going back and forth. And Harvey's talking with everybody, and everybody's chatting, because what I believe is happening here is ultimately it's being called off. They're getting cold feet. They're deciding we don't want to do this. We don't want to go through with it. And then she checks. Now, these text messages they ask, are you in Tallahassee July 14th to the 18th? I just want to know if I can have the kids on the 16th. Thanks. Yes, you can. Whether that was really anything at all, I don't think it was. I think that was something that was asked. It just happened to be when all this went down, because when they return, Sigfredo still wants to be paid. He wants to be paid what he was promised at the onset of this. So let's go and now evaluate the phone call traffic during the time that this thing actually goes down. And I want you to notice the lack of activity between certain individuals. So here is, and I want you to see, okay, here is the calls leading up to the actual crime. And I want you to see who's actually talking here. You've got Magbanawa and Garcia. You've got Sigfredo and Magbanawa. You've got Charlie and Magbanawa talking. You've got them having not long conversations, not like the last time where they're going back and forth, but it's a lot of Katie and Sigfredo. Why? Because we know they were fighting at this time. We know their relationship was disintegrating. We know they were in some huge fights. And we know that Sigfredo had come, confronted Charlie, which made no sense. We know Sigfredo was calling Harvey, right? He was calling Harvey and threatening him on his answering machine, which made no sense. But the reason why he's doing that is because he believes that Harvey owes him money. He believes that somebody there owes him money. He's going off the rails. He's saying, I want to get paid. I want this taken care of. We got to get this rectified. And you can see here, again, more phone calls on the 15th. But who's it between now? Magbanawa, Garcia, Magbanawa, Garcia, Magbanawa, Garcia. She's begging him not to do this. She's asking him not to do this. She's panicking. She reaches out to Charlie, and her and Charlie are kind of on the outs because of all this. And she asks to go see him and says, I want to have dinner with you. And I believe she's telling him, Charlie, if you don't pay up, and he's telling him, F him, he ain't going to do it. Why would he do this? If he does this, no, I don't believe he is. And I think just try calling you, hey, no, I'm hungry, but you can come down here. We can eat in Midtown. 5 minutes, 79. Okay, just putting Kaylee down. He comes down to see her. This is on 7/14. Again, who is not speaking during this time? There's no there's no Harvey. There's no Donna. There's no phone calls going back and forth to the house. Why? Because they're not even aware this is about to happen. Okay, because they don't know that this is about to happen. And you can see after a conversation at 1:56 in the morning between Catherine and Sigfredo, he gets up and he goes to Comfort Rent a Car and he rents it. And that's him saying, listen, you tell him I'm renting the car. I'm going down to do it. And if I haven't heard it, I'm going to do it. He's either going to pay. And she's basically telling him, listen, Sigfredo, don't do this. Don't do this. Don't do this. Says, all right, I'll meet you. He's again, arrogant and asshole. He doesn't think this is going to actually happen. Who does she spend the day calling? Who do we not see on here? We don't see any phone calls again to, between the parties. Sigfredo is saying, we're going up there because I need to get paid because I need my money. And to me, and again, I'll play it for you. Let's listen.
So after the first, Sigfredo came to you and said that you had to go back to Tallahassee, right?
Yeah.
He told you that he needed you to go back because he needed the money, right?
Yes, sir.
There it is. I play that for you because that's what he's telling them right now. I needed to go back because I needed to get my money. That doesn't make sense, right? I mean, we got to go back. I need to get my money. That sounds like he's saying I need to get paid. Like I was supposed to get paid. This asshole's not paying me, so I'm going to go do it anyways. And then then he's going to pay me because then he's going to know I'm serious, and he's going to have no choice but to pay me because he's going to understand that I'm willing to do this. So that's why he goes. That's why this gets done because he wants to get paid. He being Sigfredo. So let's keep going here. There's conversations between Charlie and Katie. I think the conversations is he's serious. He's heading up there and he's saying, don't do this. Well, tell him not to do it. I don't think he's going to do it. I think he's going to do it, Charlie. You need to come up with the money. And he's probably like, this dude's crazy. I ain't got the money. I'm not paying him. Like, F him. Let him do what he's going to do. There's no way he's going to do this. 11:45. In the morning. Again, who do you see on this page? You do not see Donna Adelson. You do not see Harvey Adelson. And again, who do you not see on this? But what you do see, okay, as we're coming here, because the 17th, they travel up on the 16th, the 17th, they're there. Who are you not seeing on this page? You're seeing, I mean, you are seeing some calls here between Charlie and Donna Adelson for a few minutes. These are normal calls that he would have normally made, talking to his mom on the way home, maybe checking in, nothing substantial, no ping ponging of calls back and forth. You see two calls to Donna Adelson. I don't think he's even alerting his mother on this. Like, you see a call at 7:21 for 2 minutes. These are not like what you saw back in June. Back in June, there were significant calls, 20 minutes, 10 minutes, 25 minutes, calls going back and forth, calls, zoom, 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 zoom. Now you're going to see that after this happens. So I want you to take a look and see what's going on here. Then she calls him back. There's a 53-second call. They're talking throughout the night because I think what's going on at this point is he's basically saying, listen, are you able to get a hold of him? Is he really going to do this? Like, he can't be serious. And I think that she's basically telling him, hey, this is what he's told me he's going to do. Katie's trying to stop this thing. He's telling her, please do everything you can because I ain't got the money. And this is crazy. He can't possibly do this. If he does this, this is nuts. And I think that, to him, he thinks it's an argument over money. And he's asserting, that would be Charlie, I'm not going to pay you this money. I'm not paying you the money I owed. I've already paid you $5,000. The job's not getting done. Maybe, and he might even be, again, for all we know, he could have been offering to pay him something, but it wasn't what Sigfredo wanted. So, in my opinion, that's what we're seeing developing here. That's why Katie Magbanua is freaking out. That's why she's calling Sigfredo so much. That's why that's why Luis Rivera is reporting that, he's telling me we're going up there because he needs to get paid. And again, I believe that Charlie probably did not alert Donna or Harvey or Wendy at this point that this thing was going to happen. I think that explains why Wendy was so afraid when she heard this happened. And that's why she made the comments. That's why she made the initial comments she did, because she knew her brother and she called her mom. That's why she said, I'm relieved. It didn't sound like she had anything to do with this. Now, she's an idiot, right? She should have kept her mouth shut just about all of it, because she should have known that you don't have your family suspected without you being suspected. She should have lawyered up and gotten away from this, but she did because she was concerned. And we have all the stuff about the fixing of the TV. I think some things are just coincidences, and I think in this case, it just ended up being a coincidental set of facts. And I think that was something that was going on, that she needed a TV repaired, and it just happened to be right along the time that that all of this occurred. Now, the only thing that I thought was a little weird is, this is so sweet, but I think there was a message or a picture that was sent that could have been attached to. So again, there are some things sometimes that happen that are just coincidences, and it's just a coincidence of the fact that, again, Charlie is gotten himself entangled with Catherine Magbanua, who has a boyfriend who wants to get paid, who's upset because he was hired to do something and thought he was going to be getting a lot of money. They tried to cancel the hit, and Sigfredo says, you don't get to cancel this, bro. You owe me money. I went all the way up there. I went and did this. I want X amount of dollars, whatever it was, 100,000, 200,000, whatever it was they agreed upon. I think he was wanting to get paid, and Charlie was saying, you're not getting that, man. Hell no. You're not getting 100 grand of my money for doing nothing for me. Are you crazy? No way. That's just not going to happen. And then Wendy calls Charlie, and again, that conversation in the morning, maybe Charlie was calling to, maybe they were talking, about something, but I think Wendy was probably, it just happened. That call came through that morning. Um, and they're talking, and she's talking about the TV because he's the one that bought the TV. I mean, it all makes sense when you look at it. And she's not thinking to herself, hey, somebody's getting gunned down today. I mean, I don't think that would have been a solution. I know there's a lot of people that hate Wendy Adelson, but that's just, I think, what was going on. I think Charlie was probably willing to talk with her that morning because he was probably a little concerned about where she was and what was going on. I think Charlie calls. Looks like Charlie calls Katie and probably is like, "What's going on? Is everything cool?" They're having one final conversation. And she says, "Well, let's meet tonight. I don't know what's happening. I haven't been able to reach him." Um, and you see, it looks like Charlie called his mother at 11:22, and then Charlie calls Katie back at 11:30, and Charlie calls Katie back at 11:31. It looks like, and then you have Sigfredo calls Katie to tell her that the deed was done at 12:30. So, this was the line after all these things happened. Again, I think these phone calls, these are people that called each other a lot, but you don't see the back and forth, the ping ponging back and forth, where one's talking to the other and the other's calling who, and all of that you saw back in June. And you don't see Harvey's involvement. I think that what happened here, again, as you see that develops as you look for as the phone records go, it proves um, again that Charlie, I think, got in over his head. So here we go. We're looking through these the phone records again, and these are just individual slides reflecting the calls that are going on, and where they're at and what's going on. And these are the unfortunate slides. So it's my opinion that once this gets done, right, Charlie is not aware that it's been done until, of course, his mom calls and tells him this happened. I think he freaks out. I think he and we're going to look at. I believe I have the phone logs of the after effects of this, so I believe I included that in here. Hopefully, I did. All right, let's click through here. We got the wine and spirits, and again, a lot of this stuff. I think you know now there's also the potential. Okay, now I think I'm operating under the idea that that they did know that maybe Charlie would have kept it from them. But this also fits with the idea too of what Wendy was doing this day. Because see, the TV repair may have just been something that was scheduled. But it's also possible that those conversations was Charlie was telling her, "Stay away. These guys are back in town. Where are the boys?" He's let Donna know and talked to her and said, "Mom, it's out of control." He's threatening to go down there. Uh, the reason why I'm thinking that they're not involved is because I think they would have got Harvey involved in this, but maybe not. Maybe they would have tried to solve it on their own. That might have been why Wendy got nervous and said, "Let me go down there and see." But it's also why, if Wendy would have heard that something happened, or someone was shot, or drove down there and saw, why she would have pulled up and she would have immediately gone into a panic and said, "Oh my God, what have they done? What have they done down south? Did they do this? Did they go through with it? No, please. I hope it didn't happen." And then again, it's also possible that the route she took was just the route she took, and she saw this. And of course, also, like I said, there had to have been her knowledge. I think she knew about what was happening in June. I think she was responsible for it getting caught off, and I think she reacted to that. And I think that's what you see here in this, in where she goes and how she reacts. And she pulls up and she looks and she leaves and she goes to the liquor store and she tries to compose herself and tell her, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." Now, and then goes to lunch and then tries to maintain herself, right? Um, and then we have here Sigfredo Garcia, some calls that he makes. Like I said, the 12:30 call, it looks like his phone is turned off. That's what it proves, that his phone was turned off. That some calls, I think, didn't make it in because he had powered down his cell phone. Um, it looks like starting at 9:58 a.m. and then he turned it back on. Um, he got some text messages and he got two calls that came in that were incoming that did reach his phone but weren't answered. So now here is Wendy Adelson's call records. It looks like she's talking to Danny that morning. She's calling different people. Again, with her, I believe, my opinion is she didn't know what was going on, nor did Donna. And both of them were legitimately shocked, which is why we have Donna and Harvey freaking out and leaving and going down there to get her and bring her home and trying to get Charlie to pay these people off. And it's why they ultimately are paying $3,000 to Catherine McBanawa a month without concern or worry. They ultimately do get extorted, as crazy as that sounds, because I think there's a variation of the story that they may not have had the ability to get their hands on the amount of cash that this guy was demanding once he did this. And of course, they knew it was a very real threat, so they go get the money. Let's go here. We're going to keep moving through these records. Like I said, I just downloaded all of these slides. This is the trip back home. So the evening meeting, here we go. And this is going to show them returning and how they ultimately got caught because they go to the ATM. Let's go. All right, so I think we get back to some phone records here. Okay, so now we get back home, right? And here we have Donna Adelson calls at 7:12. It looks like Donna calls Wendy, or no, looks like Wendy calls Donna at 7:04. I think Charlie and Katie talk at 1:24, and I think this is when Charlie is made aware. He calls Katie. I think she probably tells him, "We have a problem." Charlie calls Donna. They might very well have been talking to each other about what had gone down, but I don't think they had yet, because I think Katie was like, "I got to go talk to Charlie, and I'm going to figure out. I'm going to get the lowdown." But they're talking right here. I don't believe at this point either Charlie or nor Donna have been told what had happened. I believe Wendy called her mother at about 7, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong on that. But I know at this point here, you're going to see where Wendy talks to Donna. Donna calls Wendy back. There's a talk there for 1 minute and 14 seconds. Donna calls Charlie. Charlie calls Donna back for 5 minutes and 47 seconds. Then she talks to Charlie, calls Donna again at 8:29. He then talks to her for 2 minutes, and he then calls. You could see that now there's some back and forth. Sigfredo calls McBanawa. Charlie calls Donna. Charlie calls McBanawa back. Sigfredo calls McBanawa back. Now you're seeing the back and forth and the ping ponging. Katie is going back and forth because I think what's going on here is there's talk, and it's like, hey, this thing happened. I think Charlie's probably trying to get information and figure out what the hell's going on. He says, yes, he did it. I think Charlie is saying, Mom, I need cash. How much cash do you have? I think a dollar figure has been discussed. Says, try to get this together. And I think the variation of the truth that comes out is that they're not able to come up with whatever that figure was. I think Katie shows up at the house. I think she says, this is what you have. She says, well, let me call Sigfredo or get in touch with Sigfredo. I think that they work out something. But I think it's actually possibly worked out even maybe before all of this happens. Because you see Adelson calls Katie for 2 seconds, and then Katie calls him back. But I think in here, what's happening at some stage, at some variation, Charlie Adelson knows that they did this. And he becomes aware, holy shit, Sigfredo, this crazy dude, just went and killed my brother-in-law. And Katie's pretty much like, he's serious. He's giving you 48 hours to come up with the money, or he's going to start coming after your family. And I think it's at that point that Charlie Adelson goes, okay, we got to take this guy serious, and we're going to pay him some money. And again, that's what ends up happening. She shows up. We have the famous phone call where Charlie tries to say that they had no contact. I think they most certainly did. Says, I'm downstairs. I'll be there in 20. I think Charlie goes home. He's freaking out. Mommy has gotten all the cash she can get together. She's washed it. She's tried to clean it off. I mean, it shows you how stupid these people are, but it also shows the lack of planning. If they were planning this, they're not washing money in the washer. Okay. They're not surprised by this happening. And that's the tell here. Why were they so surprised? They were surprised because they didn't expect it to happen. Because Charlie didn't believe this was what was going to go down. Because Charlie had pretty much told Sigfredo, go after yourself. You ain't getting paid. You're not getting any money. It isn't happening, bro. I'm sorry. You got what you got, and you're going to have to live with that. And Sigfredo basically said, no, sir. I got a different plan. We got a different way we're going to do this. I'm going to go down there, and I think that's what was going on between him and Katie Magbanowa. You see it in the messages, and then you see what you would expect to see if this is true happening after, not before. See, in June, it was before they even left. You see the ping ponging back and forth. You're seeing the back and forth here. They realize what's happened. Wendy's with the police. Donna calls Charlie and says, this is what happened. It's not going to take much phone conversation. It's going to go, Mom, I got a call. You see the back and forth here. Charlie calls Katie. Katie says, yeah, I need some money. He wants X amount of dollars. Let me call my mom and see what I can do. He says, do this. She says, we got to go up and go get Wendy. We've got to get her out. They brought her home, okay, for one reason. And this is why they brought her home, because they were worried she was going to talk to the police. That's why they brought her home. That's why they needed to get her under their control, because they knew that there was huge criminal liability here for this. They knew they had Dan Markel debt. They didn't feel necessarily like they were responsible for the actual death itself, but they knew they had put things in effect. They knew they were going to be going to prison. They knew the Adelson empire was at risk. They knew they were going to lose everything because of this, and they knew they had to cover it up. So that's why Harvey and Donna are getting in the car and driving up there, on top of the fact, of course, also to try to console her. But they're driving up there. They're not talking to the police, and they're bringing Wendy back so they can have her up there under their control, under their thumb, to make sure she's not over there getting pressured by the police to start talking and to start talking about what happened in June. And again, Charlie's belief is everybody just keep your mouth shut. Okay. Everybody keep your mouth shut, and this goes away. And for a little while, it did. But if you see here in the phone records, you can see where Charlie, where the calls start happening. You've got, Magbanowa to Sigfredo, Garcia to Magbanowa to Charlie, Magbanowa back to Sigfredo, Adelson back to Magbanowa, and then Magbanowa to Charlie Adelson when she finally arrives and all the calls stop. Prior to that, you've got Charlie talking to Donna. He's then looks like he's talking to Katie earlier in the afternoon. And I think the significant call here is that 124 call between Charlie and Katie, where I think she warns him or tells him this just happened. I don't know all the details yet. I've got to talk to Sigfredo, but Sigfredo wants his money. I think Charlie calls Donna and says, Mom, we got a problem. And then he calls her again a little bit later, and they talk and says, I'll talk to you in a little bit. We've got to talk some more. Then I think Donna calls Charlie for 8 seconds and says, holy shit, Wendy has just called me, and Wendy knows, and Wendy's with the police. And then you see Charlie call Donna back, and they speak for 7 minutes. They speak for Charlie calls Donna back and they speak for 5 minutes. Then Garcia calls Katie. Then Charlie calls Donna back again and they speak for another 6 minutes. So there's 11 minutes of phone calls, and they're talking, and she's getting off the phone. She's probably having to tell Harvey what's going on. And then Garcia calls Katie, and then Katie calls Garcia, and there's talk going back and forth as they're trying to figure all of this stuff out. To which Charlie then says, my parents, I'm sure, is telling her, hey, my parents are coming with the money. Meet me at the house. We'll talk some more. I need to know what the fuck just happened. And that's exactly what I think the conversation is. And I think he does. I think he goes in there. I think he hands her the money. I think she's telling him, Charlie, I want to take care of you. I'm going to protect you the best I can. Blah, 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 blah. And he's just freaking out. And then he goes and becomes the lunatic hermit that he became. He gets himself cameras, which he was already getting before because he thought this was just an issue of Sigfredo chasing him down for money. But he says, now I definitely need them. He starts carrying a gun. And then that explains the reaction of why he reacts the way he does and says, oh my God, is this guy sending? Like, is this the other guy that Sigfredo brought with him? Like, now they want money? I mean, I thought Sigfredo understood that, like, we were good. Like, I paid you, I paid him, I'm paying you the money per month, I'm taking care of the family. Like, we're friends for life. Like somewhere along the line this has to end, and that's why he's saying, at the end of the day, we'll go to the police, we'll roll the dice, there's been enough time, nobody's talked. And then when he realizes it is the police, he thinks, well, they're never going to really be able to know then, and if they're doing something like this, it means they ain't got any evidence. To which Luis Rivera ends up being the one that rolls over on everybody, because guess what, he's got nobody to protect but himself. And unfortunately, he can only tell what he knows. And again, go back and let's listen.
So after the first, Sigfredo came to you and said that you had to go back to Tallahassee, right?
Yeah.
He told you that he needed you to go back because he needed the money, right?
Yes, sir.
You assumed there was, quote, more to it, but you never asked Sigfredo, right?
Never asked him.
There it is. That's my theory on this. I believe it's backed up by the phone activity. I believe it's backed up by the evidence. I believe it is the closest variation of what actually occurred next to what Rashbaum claims, which Rashbaum, of course, claims that these people knew nothing about anything going on, that this was simply a byproduct of Charlie bragging. I think when you listen to that and you think about that, Rashbaum says, we're telling two stories. Again, and by definition, in that case, by definition of reasonable doubt, it did exist for Charlie Adelson. Problem was, while it did exist for Charlie Adelson, it really wasn't. There was a problem, and the main problem was, all right, she shows up at your house. She says, "I've talked too much, and this bad person did this," and he just hands over $125,000 or something like that, uh, without proof. Where's the proof? I mean, where's the proof that they were involved? I mean, look, at that point, he doesn't even hesitate. Only reason why he's handing it over is because he had to know that she was serious. The way he knew is because he had originally set this thing up, and it had gotten canceled. And then we have the weird time for that whole month after the first trip that the police didn't even know existed. And then we have the showdown, July 1st, when Sigfredo loses his shit in the street. He's calling Harvey's office. He's leaving messages. He's basically saying, I want to get paid. He goes to his good friend, Luis Rivera, who tells us what we need to know. And Luis says, again, I'll play it for you.
So after the first trip, Sigfredo came to you and said that you had to go back to Tallahassee, right?
Yeah.
He told you that he needed you to go back because he needed the money, right?
Yes, sir.
And that's what he says, right? There it is. He needed the money. It doesn't make any sense. It's as if it's like, okay, was there an option for him to not go back? No, he's saying, I need the money. We got to go back. We got to finish this job. Why does he need to finish the job? Because when he finishes the job, he's going to go to Charlie Adelson and he's going to say, you better pay me, mother, or I'm going to do the rest of your family. And I believe that's exactly what he ended up doing. And I believe that he was upset that he was getting punked by Charlie Adelson. I believe he felt that he wanted to get paid. He got sick and tired of dealing with it. He was telling Katie, listen, I want this done. I want this money. I want this money for me and my family, for you. And you're punking me. He's punking me. This guy's not going to punk me. He's got you. Now he's going to punk me out of money. This guy's going to learn a hard lesson. I'm going to go up there. I'm going to offer his brother-in-law. I'm going to make it clear, and then he's going to pay me the money. And if he doesn't, he's going to understand that now he owes people. Now Luis Rivera will be involved. Now the world's going to come down on Charlie Adelson unless they come up with money. And that's exactly what ends up happening, because as soon as he gets done, he, again, will play the clip.
As you previously have said, you assumed there was, quote, more to it, but you never asked Sigfredo, right?
Never asked.
As you previously have said, you assumed there was, quote, more to it, but you never asked Sigfredo, right?
And there you have it. There was more to it. Why does he assume there's more to it? Because he thought it was very odd and strange that he wasn't getting paid up front, because that was something in his mind was not how it was supposed to go. That this seemed strange. This seemed out of sorts. It seemed like everything was running through Katie, and Sigfredo was talking to Katie a lot throughout this entire thing. I think at this point, Katie had lost control of the situation. I think that either one of two things is happening. Either Katie was basically saying, "This is what we need to do, Sigfredo, so we're going to get paid," because I think maybe she realized her relationship with Charlie was ending and she wanted to cash in. Or B, she was trying to act as an intermediary to try to keep Sigfredo from doing this, and she was trying to frantically call him. I believe, based on the call activity between Katie and Sigfredo, that she was begging him not to do this. And I believe, as you see, how it was like a spur of the moment, 6 a.m. He gets up and goes to Comfort Rent a Car. It's like, all right, baby, I'm renting the rent a car. See, I'm serious. Now, you tell that fool I want my money. Charlie still says no. She's reaching out to Charlie. No, we're not. They're in a big fight. That was testified to. If you go back and listen to the trial testimony, they can't get into the specifics of this fight. Katie's not going to say, yeah, this is what's up. This is what it was. This is why her story didn't make sense, because she's having to tell a story that isn't true either, or at least part of it's not true. What are they fighting about? They're fighting because of Charlie not being willing to pay Sigfredo. She's in the middle. She's upset. She knows Sigfredo's upset. She's trying to tell Charlie he's serious. Charlie's trying to tell her, I'm not paying him. He can go F himself. I'm not afraid of him. And eventually, the middleman, the casualty in all of this becomes Dan Markel when Sigfredo rents the rental car, gets Rivera, heads up the road, commits the crime, gets all hopped up on coke and alcohol, and bam, shoots him right in his garage, and then goes back and says, all right, I'll tell that guy I want my money. And guess what? He comes up with some of the money. I believe he comes up with some of the money. I believe that part of the story is true. And yeah, you say again, who's paying a hitman rent? Well, again, in the real world, not it's only in the movie world where we see hits play out the way they play out. In the real world, it's messy. In the real world, it's the real world, and that's exactly what we saw play out here. So he says, "All right," and Charlie's afraid, and Charlie feels like, probably, in my opinion, he felt like, if I'm giving, and that's how he probably explained it to his mother, we're safe. That's a security fund, and he says, "I'll pay you, Katie, $3,000 a month." And she says, I'll make sure it never goes up. And he says, I'll give you $3,000 a month. You'll be a friend of the family. I want to make sure the Sigfredo knows that I'm valuable. And that's what he was worried about. And it was only when the bump happens and he freaks out, and you hear that conversation, and you hear him going through all these different things, and you hear him saying, this is the first layer, the second layer. He's talking about all of it. He's like, what is this? Why are they extorting me? Like, this is Sigfredo. Sigfredo should know, like, you don't do this to me. Like, why is this happening? And if it is, he is freaking out a little bit, because now he's thinking to himself, okay, word's gotten out that I'm paying these people, but why is Sigfredo putting this out on the street? Right? This is an agreement between he and I. It's my keep safe money. It's my rent for me to be able to continue and have a life outside of this. And I don't mind paying it because I make a lot of money. So I'll do it. But I'm not going to just keep paying every Tom, Dick, and Harry that comes out of the woodwork and decides, hey, you've got to pay me money now. And now they're coming to my parents? What the hell? And we don't know. I'm quite certain that Harvey probably didn't know anything about this, or at that point. Maybe he suspected. I think it was one of these things where it was like Donna was like, know as little as possible. Although I think he probably had to have known, because he would have been in the car that night when they dropped the money off. So I think Harvey probably knew what he needed to know about this. And I think that's when they go and they said, your dad's going to freak out and panic. And that's why they all end up meeting. I think the one person that didn't know probably about the bump and what was going on with all that was probably Wendy. And I think that's why they're like, she has no idea what we're going through. She has no idea about all of this stuff, because I think that it's probably possible that they may have never told her the truth because she probably came to them and said, I don't want to know what happened. I just know that it had to have had something to do with whatever you guys were doing. And I told you guys not to do it. And again, this might make me unpopular because this would lead to say Wendy Adelson isn't guilty of anything in this case, but having ridiculous family members, and maybe having not spilled the beans at the onset when she was with the police and saying this is what my family was planning on doing. Although she kind of did, but she just didn't get into the details. But I believe that's what happened. I believe that's what the phone records show. I believe that you can make a very strong case that um, that this is what occurred. Now, how does this play out for Donna Adelson? I think it's why she's got the rash bomb. I think it's why they feel the only defense that can be offered for Donna Adelson at this point is the a variation of the idea that she was being extorted. I think they feel that she has enough distance from this that she could say this was all Charlie and I had nothing to do with it. And Charlie didn't tell me till after the fact. But what he told me was he told me the story that he presented in court, and it allows her to not have to turn on Charlie to put up a defense. And she's going to say, again, remember, Charlie says she becomes aware of all this after the fact. And she says, I'll help you, Charlie, because and for her, again, and this is what people have to remember, for her, it's not as ridiculous, right? As with Charlie. We don't have that problem that Charlie had, which is, why did you pay in the first place? She's just being told by Charlie, this is what's going on. This is what I believe happened. And this is why this has to happen. Now, some might say, well, shouldn't she ask for more proof from her son? No. She's just going to say her son's told her he's involved in it. And this is what's going on. And okay, holy cow, this is crazy. And then the bump happens, and she could almost say, well, that reiterates it a little bit more. So I think it's not going to be this open, shut, slam dunk case. Now, obviously, flight and things of that nature show a consciousness of guilt, things she said on the phone. But at the same point, I think with the fact that she knew they were coming, she knew her son was convicted, she knew there was an overwhelming amount of public thought going that she's guilty. I think, again, the flight evidence isn't as convincing to me for that reason. But I think they're guilty here. I think she's guilty of conspiracy to commit murder. But I think the problem might end up being and if I was the state, I would be charging both, right? Because I think that would cover yourself if down the road somehow this gets uncovered, or maybe Sigfredo decides to speak, or maybe Katie says, I want to speak about the truth of what was really going on at that time. Because what ends up happening here is for the actual murder itself, for the actual death itself, they're not technically culpable. They're victims, right? As hard as that might be to understand. But where they are guilty of something is they're guilty of the conspiracy in June. And because money was paid, because addresses were given, because they were allowed to go up, even if they called it off, they would still be guilty of conspiring because they conspired to do it. And the fact that this happened in a separate amount, that is a defense. Georgia Cappleman even said that would be the defense to the July issue. However, the conspiracy to commit murder occurred, and they would be guilty of a conspiracy, because a conspiracy doesn't require it be completed. It just requires that one act be completed in furtherance of the crime. Therefore, that solidifies the conspiracy, and therefore they can be charged and convicted for conspiracy. And that's where I think, if we are sending them away for the correct crime, that's what they deserve to be sent away for. And of course, the side effect being this individual decides, hey, I want to get paid. I want money. I want to close the deal. So as a result, I'm going to do this anyways, and we're going to do it. And that's where this thing ended up at. So put in the comments what your thoughts are on my theory. Do you think it holds weight? Obviously, here I was going through these slides. I apologize. There's a lot of slides in there that I captured, and again, the purpose of looking at the phone records, if you're looking at the records there, is just to look at the difference in call activity. Right? We don't know what was on the calls. We don't have text messages, but it's the volume of activity and when the volume occurred. the fact that prior to these guys leaving, there's all this activity going on between all the family members of the Adelsons. And then all of that activity happens after. And the volume of activity that's happening before is between three people, Sigfredo and Katie and Charlie. And it's indicating that there's a fight, there's a feud, there's a problem. We know on the 1st of July that there is a confrontation in the street. We know all of those things happen. We know there's a call to the Adelson Institute. We know that Sigfredo and Katie's relationship is frayed. We know, again, I'll leave you with the final quote and end it here with Mr. Rivera.
After the first trip, Sigfredo came to you and said that you had to go back to Tallahassee, right?
Yeah.
He told you that he needed you to go back because he needed the money, right?
Yes, sir.
So after the first trip,
and that's where we're ended, guys. They had to go back because he needed the money. So, anyways, that's where we're going to leave it. Let me know in the comments what you think here. I appreciate all of everybody that watches this, everybody that interacts, everybody that provides feedback. And of course, obviously, as we get deeper into the Donna Adelson case and stuff, I'm going to be ramping up coverage of that. I'm going to get into the case files down there because it's a Florida case and I can get in there and read all the pleadings and things, which makes it really, really nice. So, there'll be some reporting going on for that. So, let me know what you think, guys. Also, again, memberships are available. I would encourage you to consider joining. Go check it out right now. There's a link in the description of this video for membership. 2 levels of membership opportunities here. There's going to be live streams, videos, chats, polls, all sorts of interactive things for the members to keep this thing fun. And we will hopefully grow the membership opportunities as well as time progresses. So anyways, guys, I appreciate all the showing of support that we've had thus far. Appreciate everybody that watches this video, even if it's just one of you or maybe 10 of you or maybe more. I appreciate it, guys. And until we talk again, let justice prevail, and I'll talk to you.